Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to thank the folks who've joined us today. Cook County Commissioners Aguilar, Anaya, Johnson, and Miller. Chris Patterson, Assistant Secretary of the Illinois Department of Human Services, Office of Firearm Violence Prevention. Avik Das, Executive Director of our Justice Advisory Council. I also want to acknowledge the over 40 representatives here today from the service provider organizations, and I want to thank the individuals who will share their perspectives. That's Camille Walton, Deputy Director of Cornerstone Community Development Corporation, and Michelle Grimes, Director of Counseling at Youth Guidance. Today, we come together to announce $25 million in new funding for gun violence prevention and reduction programming in Cook County. We're here to acknowledge the 39 grant awards that will support over 70 organizations doing exceptional work in our communities. This funding comes from our partners at the Illinois Department of Human Services, Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, who you will hear from shortly. The grants are made possible by the state's Reimagined Public Safety Act, and we're incredibly proud of this partnership with IDS. For the past 2 years, Cook County has convened an intergovernmental working group on violence prevention. As gun violence surged at the start of the pandemic, state, county, and city leaders and advocates came together, meeting regularly with the goal of coordinating and maximizing the impact of the federal funding that was available for violence prevention. Our collaboration has led to this partnership. The Intergovernmental Working Group continues to meet, focusing on metrics and strategies to measure the impacts of these investments. Looking forward, we plan to work collaboratively to ensure that the impact of these vital investments is sustained. The $25 million being awarded today is part of the Cook County's Gun Violence Prevention and Reduction Grant Program, managed by our Justice Advisory Council. The new funding cycle complements the previous $75 million of American Rescue Plan Act funded gun violence prevention and reduction grants that were awarded this last summer. As you know, we saw rates of gun violence surge during the pandemic, not just in Cook County, but across the country. In fact, there was a roughly 35% increase in gun homicides nationwide. And gun violence has become the leading cause of death for children and young adults in the United States. Shame on us. It's difficult to find words to relay how unacceptable this is. This cannot continue to be our reality. Continued action and investment is needed on all levels of government. But over the past few years, we've seen some small improvements. Some communities, particularly those with strong networks of service providers, have seen homicide rates fall. This trajectory is promising and allows some room for hope and encouragement. But we must maintain a sense of urgency in addressing gun violence, knowing the vulnerability that still exists in our communities. Over the past year, we've also heard from community members, faith leaders, advocates, and researchers calling for more funding to support violence prevention programming. The agreement with the Illinois Department of Human Services represents our shared commitment to investing at a level that can spur meaningful, lasting change in our communities. The amount of public and private funding that is being invested in violence prevention programs and initiatives is unprecedented. The now almost $100 million that's being invested through this initiative is funding a diverse array of services that include street outreach, counseling and case management, youth programs, and employment programs and support. These services promote stability for at-risk individuals and victims of gun violence, and they facilitate the healing that is necessary to break cycles of trauma. Violence prevention programs can help individuals with risk factors avoid involvement in incidents in the first place. This stabilizing impact extends beyond individuals to families and entire communities. That's the potential impact that culturally responsive, community-driven, evidence-informed programming can have when we provide adequate funding and support. While we celebrate this additional funding and the real impact it can have, we're not blind to the complexity of the issues and the challenges we face in combating gun violence. Contributing to the gun violence crisis are factors such as decades of disinvestment, persistent barriers to economic opportunity, and the prevalence of guns in our communities. Social media and the changing landscapes of interpersonal conflict are challenges that we must navigate. Fortunately, we have tools, the talent, and the will to push forward and change the tide. The organizations gathered here today have demonstrated they have the skills and the expertise to combat gun violence with evidence-informed strategies. The individuals who will lead this work are uniquely qualified. They have the intimate knowledge of their communities needed to be effective in the work. To the organizations in the room with us today, you understand the needs of vulnerable residents in our communities. You see the impact of outreach, authentic connection, and individualized support. The work you do daily is saving lives and will help build the safe and thriving communities that all of Cook County residents deserve. And the evidence backs this up. Academic studies on violence prevention programs from the University of Chicago and Northwestern University show that preventing involvement in gun violence is possible with resources and holistic support. I want to end by expressing my deep gratitude to all of the service providers engaged in this challenging work. I also want to extend my thanks to all of the outreach workers, the case managers, the counselors, the youth mentors, and community organizers working to make our streets and communities safer in Cook County. We are grateful to be working with the Illinois Department of Human Services Office of Firearm Violence Prevention to increase the reach of violence prevention and reduction programs. Through this intentional collaboration and continued investment in effective community-based solutions, we can build safe and thriving communities throughout Cook County. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring to the podium in order Commissioners Donna Miller, Commissioner Alma Anaya, and Commissioner Brandon Johnson.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And it's great to be here with all of you today and to celebrate the fact that we have funding to combat gun violence and that all of you community partners are here to make sure that this is our reality. And as a Cook County Commissioner, I represent the 6th District, which is in the South Suburbs. And I represent 36 different municipalities in the South Suburbs. I'm glad that there are some representatives here today who have gotten some of this funding from the South Suburbs. I just want to thank Bethel Family Resource Center, Cornerstone Community Development, and the Cook County Southland Juvenile Justice Center. This is going to make an impact when we think of what happens across all of Cook County, because Cook County does not know the boundaries of violence. And the other thing that's really important to note is that it's affecting all of us. I always say I'm a Cook County Commissioner, but I'm a mom first. And as a mother of 2 teenage boys, it was sad to me to realize that my sons both know victims of gun violence and have been to more funerals than I have ever attended, even in my life as an adult. And this can't be our reality as Cook County Commissioners, as community advisors, as communities who are just impacted by gun violence, but sadly it is. I'm proud that Cook County has taken a stand in this effort to combat gun violence and making sure that we have the resources and the tools in every community to impact what happens in our community so we can change the next generation's reality. The other thing that I think is important is to know that violence is not just in the city of Chicago. I always say it has no boundaries. And when we think about what happens in our communities, I know firsthand that I've known 2 of my neighbors who were victims of gun violence, who were teenagers, 19 and 18 years old boys. So I commend you all for the work that you do. It's so important to touch the community and be out there and making a difference, and hopefully we'll be able to impact and change what happens as it relates to gun violence and make it an issue not just when it's in the news in certain communities, but it's when it's in the news in all communities. So thank you for having me. And next, I want to introduce Commissioner Anaya.
Good morning, everyone. I'm extremely excited to join you all today because it's a day of celebration. Because, you know, Cook County this isn't the first time that Cook County does this. These types of programs are not new. We actually have over 10 years that the Justice Advisory Council was created, and a lot of millions of dollars have gone to the streets. But I think ARPA gave us a very unique opportunity to be here today together in this big room with a lot of people that join in the same struggles to ensure that community has the resources and has a support system. And I always say that community always has community. We have each other's backs. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than seeing that government and different levels of government are supporting the efforts, because Madam President is absolutely correct. Nobody knows what is done. Nobody knows what is most impactful, but the organizations that are here receiving the funding. And I'm extremely excited, to see a few of the organizations in my district, but one that's not in my district, but I do want to highlight, because I had a wonderful conversation with Ms. Butts here from the New Eclipse Community Alliance. And she mentioned the organization and the church have been very active since 79, but they are first-time recipients. So the work that it has been done for decades that has made an impact is now going to be able to be supported, and I'm extremely proud of that, because my goal, and something that will always stick with me, you told me you want to make sure that you're not the forgotten, and I think that that's what we want to make sure, that all of the organizations in all parts of Cook County do not feel like they're forgotten, that we're providing the support and that we're providing the resources necessary to make sure that you can do your job, to do and make sure to take care of the community. And that's extremely important, and that's why I'm extremely excited that we continue to do this work in Cook County. And I know that this, again, is not the last time that we're going to be able to provide these grants that are going to be extremely impactful, but I'm just sure glad that, again, this room is so big and it's full of a lot of people with a lot of passion and a lot of heart to making a difference. So thank you for being here.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Brandon Johnson. I'm proud to serve as Cook County Commissioner of the 1st District, representing the west side of Chicago and the western suburbs. Thank you to the President Preckwinkle for her leadership and her willingness to collaborate with all levels of government, and of course the Justice Advisory Council, the Illinois Department. You're going to hear from Chris in just a second about the work that he is leading at the state level. And I'm just very much struck by the eclectic nature of this room, because it's not just people who deeply care and love people, but some of you have been impacted by the type of disinvestment for decades that President Preckwinkle spoke of. And as an educator, as an organizer, and someone who is living in one of those communities on the west side of Chicago, the Austin neighborhood, where that investment is something that I see every day outside my front door, I want you to know that those of us who are here today, we see it, we live it, we experience it. And so isn't it great that we are now investing and providing solutions to solve it? Now, the courageous part about it, though, is that many of you have been doing it well before investments were even possible. That's God's work. That's as holy as you can be. And I know holy. I grew up in a sanctified household. I'm just saying, Church of God in Christ, we real sanctified. You all are doing the work of the people. And so now government has a responsibility. As the Bible says, where your heart is, right, your treasure will be also. The best thing that we can do for the city of Chicago and the county of Cook, and quite frankly for the state of Illinois, is to do what safe American cities do all over the country. They invest in people. You all are training folks. You're housing people. You're providing economic job opportunities for them. You're counseling them. providing the type of treatment that, quite frankly, has been ignored for too long. And so I'm grateful. Again, I'm grateful that the leadership of the President, Preckwinkle, and the Justice Advisory, in collaborating with all of our levels of government to make sure that the lives that have been deeply impacted over generations from being ignored, that we are finally now being seen. Isn't that a good thing, y'all? All right, so now let's bring the brother who is helping us bring this collaboration together. He is the Assistant Secretary of the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, Mr. Chris Patterson.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm beyond pleased and honored to join our President, Tony Preckwinkle, and the commissioners as we talk about and discuss the collaborations between our offices, the Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, IDHS, and Cook County. Today marks another important milestone in our joint efforts to respond to high levels of gun violence experienced in the greater Chicagoland area in the onset of the COVID-19 epidemic. Today, our two government bodies have come together to streamline violence prevention to support high-quality, frontline responders to firearm violence in our communities. As a result of our partnership, Cook County will have the capacity, as you've heard, to extend grant funding for community violence interventions to another 39 providers. The Illinois Department of Human Services and Cook County will enter into a grant agreement to fund a diverse array of services providers focused on supporting residents at the highest risk of experiencing gun violence, either as a victim or perpetrator, particularly in communities with the highest rate of shootings, incidents, and shootings-related homicides in Chicago and suburban Cook County. The $25 million funding will directly support street outreach, case management, victim service in areas of Cook County disproportionately impacted by firearm violence. Both OFVP, the Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, and the JAC are part of an intergovernmental task force that we heard about. The purpose of this working group is to coordinate efforts to build community violence intervention capacities across Chicagoland and ensure that funding is distributed proportionally to the needs of each area, municipality, and/or community. The partnership between OFVP and JAC is a crowning achievement. This overall coordination event demonstrates our commitment to eliminating bureaucratic hurdles so that qualified violence prevention providers like yourselves can adequately get the support that you need from both our county and our state. As partners, we will continue to take a thoughtful, targeted approach to violence intervention in communities with the highest rate of firearm violence. Together, through our partnership with Cook County, across all levels of government, and alongside our community stakeholders, we are working effectively to prevent and reduce firearm violence. Alongside this coordinated investment, the Office of Firearm Violence Prevention at the Illinois Department of Human Services has independently issued over $140 million in firearm violence prevention and youth development service funding in Illinois, over 75% of which have been issued in Chicago and greater Cook County. In the coming weeks, IDHS will be issuing NOFOs or RFPs to distribute another $100 million to funding to further advancing violence prevention and youth development across the state of Illinois. This partnership allowed IDHS to expeditiously respond to the OFVP stated union under the RSPA, Reimagine Public Safety Act, which is to support residents at high risk of experiencing gun violence as either a victim or perpetrator, particularly in communities with the highest rates of shootings and homicides. The Reimagine Public Safety Act, communities where violence prevention services are desperately needed, will now have funded community providers who can respond to and prevent escalations of violence, a tactic and program that we've seen over time that has been very effective. Organizations will be engaged quickly and seamlessly, and so they can begin to provide care to communities right away. As a result, individuals and families who are at highest risk of being impacted by firearm violence, either by committing violence, being a victim or a witness of violence, or having friends and family members victims of violence will receive necessary interventions to improve harmful effects and engage safety within their communities. Lastly, we are honored and pleased to collaborate on this important work. I know we will achieve great things, and this is just the first of many steps. And with that, I hope this gives the hope. I hope this brings optimism to, as we heard earlier, to providers who over the years have been working out of their pockets to make sure that our communities were safer. And because of you, we stand here today. So with that being said, thank you, and have a good morning. And with that, I will hand it over to my dear friend, Executive Director of the Cook County Justice Advisory Council, Avik Das.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Patterson. Thank you very much. Thank you to the commissioners and to everyone in the room, really, to make this special. It is my pleasure to offer brief remarks on this grant initiative, recognize the organizations in attendance, and then introduce our final speakers. We're here today to acknowledge the second funding cycle of the Cook County Gun Violence Prevention and Reduction Grant Initiative. This initiative was designed in direct response to the surge in gun violence experienced over the last 3 years. The tragic implications of the gun violence crisis, the sense of diminished safety, of opportunity, the trauma, the loss of life, this has been felt most acutely in our Black and brown communities that have suffered from historic disinvestment. This grant initiative focuses investment in these communities so that we are working towards building the safe and thriving communities that all residents deserve. This past summer, we awarded an initial $75 million in gun violence prevention and reduction grants, and today, with the support of the Illinois Department of Human Services, Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, we celebrate an additional $25 million in funding for violence prevention and reduction programming in our communities most impacted by gun violence. This partnership between the Justice Advisory Council, JAC, and the IDHS, Office of Firearm Violence Prevention, has enabled us to make additional grants to exceptionally qualified applicants that we simply did not have the funding to support during the first round of grant awards the JAC made. The 39 grant awards we announced today represent some of the most innovative programs proposed in the 190 grant applications the JAC received under this initiative. So with these additional awards, we grow to support 73 lead organizations. This total investment of nearly $100 million will support a network of over 140 providers of a diverse array of violence prevention and reduction services. Many representatives from the awarded organizations are here today. So I would like to recognize the exceptional work that you are all engaged in with a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. This initiative is special in that these programs share common evidence-informed strategies, yet they include very distinct elements and approaches developed to meet the needs of specific neighborhoods and populations. In just a moment, you will hear from two amazing organizations, Youth Guidance, whose authentic counseling model and prevention programs have supported students throughout Chicagoland, and the Cornerstone Community Development Corporation, an organization that has provided responsive wraparound services for South suburban residents for over 50 years. Before we transition to hear these awarded organizations, I will share some final thoughts for all the awarded organizations. As we embark on this journey together as partners, funding agency, and service providers, we collectively commit to doing our best for residents and communities. In the coming years, we will be asked to demonstrate the success and impact of this funding and your work. Know that throughout this process, we will come alongside you, working to support your success, build capacity, and unpack the data and metrics you will provide. The JAC's investment strategy centers on supporting programming that is evidence-informed and community-affirmed. Both are necessary to maintain the trust and support of residents, community leaders, and elected officials. Your programs are grounded in best practices and they are community driven. We also want to promote solidarity and collaboration across all these programs so we can build on your success and continue to grow the continuum of services available to our residents. I hope that you will view yourselves as a cohort and a network where you can access support, guidance, and collaboration. We aim to facilitate connections to each other and to us throughout this grant period. Finally, know that we are incredibly proud to be partnering with all of you and supporting the vital, life-changing work that you do. We look forward to learning even more about your organization, hearing success stories from your work, and supporting you through any challenge that may arise. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your dedication to supporting the most vulnerable residents in our communities. Together, we will make strides towards building peaceful neighborhoods and safe and thriving communities throughout Cook County. And now I'm pleased to be able to introduce a couple representatives of the great work that's being done here. First, we're going to hear from Camille Walton, Deputy Director of the Cornerstone Community Development Corporation, followed by Michelle Grimes, Director of Counseling at Youth Guidance. Camille?
Thank you, Commissioner Sims, President Prewinkle, and the Justice Advisory Council for inviting me to be here today. My name is Camille Walton. I am the Deputy Director of Cornerstone Community Development Corporation, serving the Calumet City cluster, which is comprised of Calumet City, Harvey, Dalton, Riverdale, South Holland, Markham, and Lansing, and the Chicago Heights cluster, which comprises of Chicago Heights, Park Forest, and South Village. Our core mission is to improve the quality of life of the underprivileged and to assist vulnerable populations in times of crisis, emphasizing emergency, supportive, and educational services to individuals and families until they stabilize. Our motto is sustain, stabilize, and empower. Today, I wanted to share some information about our SOS, Securing Opportunities for Success Workforce Development Program. Our program offers certifications and trainings in the construction, industrial, and manufacturing sectors, all of which have large concentrations in the Southland region. Some of the courses we offer are workplace safety, which includes OSHA 30, first aid and CPR, construction flagger, forklift operator, lead and asbestos abatement, unarmed security, residential wiring, window capping, scaffolding, commercial drone pilot, and heavy construction equipment operation. With the help of state-of-the-art simulators, allowing students to gain realistic, hands-on experience and develop muscle memory in a safe environment under instructional supervision. We currently have technology to train participants to operate skid steers, bulldozers, backhoes, excavators, wheel loaders, and reach truck. In addition to these trainings, participants receive core classes such as job readiness, financial capability, and housing counseling services, aimed with a holistic goal of increasing employability, financial health, and overall sustainability for the household. For more information, visit our website at cornerstone-cdc.org. Thank you, guys. And our next speaker is Michelle Grimes, the Director of Counseling for Youth Guidance.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here on behalf of Youth Guidance to receive this grant. I serve as the Director of Counseling for Youth Guidance. At Youth Guidance, we believe that success in school is not only possible, but should be achieved and celebrated. We are present in schools to facilitate an environment that engages students in the learning process enables them to realize their full potential and graduate with a meaningful plan for successfully managing life. We believe in the potential of all kids, and we help them achieve this through our evidence-based social emotional learning programs. You may have heard of our Becoming a Man program or our Working on Womanhood program. These are school year-long group counseling and clinical mentoring programs that help students safely express their feelings, increase resilience, and gain support from a trusted counselor throughout the day. During the COVID-19 crisis, we identified that our youth and families had a lot of urgent, concrete needs that were beyond the scope of what the school could provide. While our social emotional learning programs are a strong support for youth in school, we found that a lot of students had out-of-school needs, such as housing placement as assistance, food, bill payments, clothing, community mental health resources, and an abundance of other needs that they just couldn't access during the school day. Our Community Connections program was bred out of the need for us to better support the youth and families we serve with more immediate resources. We are grateful to be awarded this grant so that we can expand on the continuum of support we can provide our youth and families. We know that when youth and families have what they need, they're less likely to engage in violence, and that's why this grant is so important. It rewards a different approach to violence prevention. We recognize that violence prevention isn't limited just to street outreach. Violence prevention means equipping our youth and their families with what they need to ensure that they can be successful in their schools and in their communities. We're grateful that this grant will help us fund more resource specialists to support youth with connections to resources. It will expand our ability to provide crisis response to youth and families in emergency situations, and it will help us broaden the amount of youth and families that we can serve across Chicagoland. So once again, we are so grateful to be here. Thank you so much on behalf of Youth Guidance.
All right, Nick? Thanks so much. Thank you very much.